XRP hodler.
Hey David, shout out from Australia, mate. Just got a question for you. Do you see a growing trend in banks or nation states holding XRP as a hedge against currency debasement as opposed to just using XRP as a rail for payments?
I mean, anything is possible, but that seems I mean, that's a little far out there. Given the these are incredibly conservative entities, like more conservative than the Catholic Church. I would be very surprised if they were sort of like radical early adopters of crypto, even at scale. This is one of the things that I've been thinking about CBDCs too, like a similar area. Like there's been a lot of interest from central banks and CBDCs, like a lot, but I'm very skeptical that it's going to turn into actual execution because again, these are very conservative. Like I would be surprised if you saw a CBDC in production that like was meaningful, within a couple of years. Because I would be surprised if you saw, institutional adoption is always slower than we think it's going to be, and it takes some competitive drive to get that kind of adoption. And I don't know that central banks are sort of in competition for a sort of global wealth and the sort of global movement of funds and the sort of global economic growth. But it's hard to see them like being aggressive on that scale. I think obviously I would love to see that happen. One of the earliest visions for digital assets like XRP was like this could be like you could have regional hubs that settle with stable coins or local tokens or IOUs or whatever. But then how do you communicate? Like if you have hubs that aren't all that jurisdictionally compatible, how do you settle across those sort of regional hubs? And a cryptocurrency makes great sense. I think like this good product market fit for a cryptocurrency in an application like that. But like getting adoption it's just going to be very, very, very difficult. One factor that I do think is helpful in that way, though. One thing that might be the reason why there were two things. One of them is like there's sort of a backlash against the dollar, but I think there's also a backlash against U.S. or EU control over the movement of funds between sovereign nations and other parts of the world. Like there's no inherent reason why there should be a compliance check in New York when a Saudi Arabian company wants to buy land in Kuwait. Like, there's no reason why there should be a compliance check going on, in Brussels or in New York, like for that that's a regional transaction. There's two sovereign countries that are involved in that payment, and those types of I think there are a lot of countries in the world that are, outside the EU and the US and who are not super happy with the fact that they're beholden to foreign countries to operate their critical parts of their financial infrastructure. So those things are pressures that are moving in the other direction, but I think it's probably going to be much more slow. When CBDCs first started moving, I thought, whoa, like something could happen, something big could happen really fast. And then there's like a huge pullback. And I think if you're thinking about those sort of broad global things, they're going to happen very slowly. If you're holding up hope for something like that to happen soon, I mean, I hope you're right. Obviously, I would love to see something like that happen. But I think the reality is that these are incredibly conservative institutions. That's why small countries have moved. That's why countries like Palau and Bhutan have been a little bit faster moving. And it's unusual when you see, entities like Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority or larger countries move more quickly. And I think there you have to look at like this, but there's the regional pressures that they're facing. I'm probably wrong about all this. I mean, obviously, it's outside my field of expertise, but I think movement's going to be slow.
But sorry, David, Saudi Arabia is using Ripple network.
Schwartz, bear with.
So,
David, I know the UK are currently saying 2030 at most, but they haven't even decided whether it's a yes or no. They just know that it'll be about 2030 when they actually say yes or no. So I think you're right, that it won't be that fast. But in terms of what you were just saying there, you were talking about the local payments between the local countries. There's a lot of narrative at the moment about the death of the dollar. What's your thoughts on that with the local currency to local payments? Do you think it will be the death of the dollar or not?
I don't think it's going to. I think death is a little strong, but I think it's reasonable to expect a reduction in the use of the dollar. In those types of regions, I think there's going to be a lot. There's a lot of pushback. You know, we in the United States, we've been very fortunate that we've gotten a huge boost to our economy from the fact that we can produce dollars very, very cheaply, and the world has accepted them and held them and used them, and it's been a massive economic benefit. I mean, I think any story of the economic success of the United States that ignores the monetary policy aspect is missing a huge part of the big picture. One of the things that propelled the United States to its position on the world stage is the fact that its currency has been remarkably successful. And I don't think people in the United States would like to see that go away. And so you're going to see, and the United States has a lot of levers that it can push. And I think you're going to see a geopolitical battle going on with the United States working with its allies to the extent possible to defend the dollar. And I think the first countries that you're going to see pushing back are going to be the fairly large sort of regional powerhouses, countries like Saudi Arabia, for example, that are sort of a regional powerhouse that's not super happy about having the United States like do compliance checks on the regional transactions. There's like no rational reason for that, and I think they're gonna use pushing back against the dollar. It's gonna get tied up in that battle, but you know, I don't know what the outcome's going to be. One of the crazy success outcomes that I could see is like I could see a place where the United States says, look, the dollar is not going to be able to hold on to its position of dominance, but we'd rather whatever becomes the sort of next dominant settlement unit not be something controlled by Russia or China or a geopolitical rival. You could almost see them deciding that a cryptocurrency was a less bad outcome for them. And it may be that there's no geopolitical entity that's strong enough to take over the role that the United States had. And so maybe they decide on some neutral asset. I don't know. You can dream, right?
Yeah. Hey, Money, you have your hand up. Go ahead.